cost, and EPA did not do that.
Environmental reporter Mark Obmascik of the Denver Post. Back to population. The growth, the number of people coming to Colorado continues, but at a slower rate. Guy Kelly.
Well, first of all, Don, you know I never break any of the state's speeding laws.
I knew I had goofed
Even
up.
if I wanted to speed, I probably couldn't because there's so many cars on the road, it seems like. Yeah, the population is still increasing. The Census Bureau came out with a report last week saying that from July 94 to 95, Colorado gained about 85,000 people. That puts us at 3,744,000. And that's a very healthy gain, about 2.3%. Fourth fastest growing state in the nation. But that's down from the 95,000 people that moved here the year before, and we're looking at about maybe 65,000 coming this year. So the rate of growth is slowing, but although it's still healthy, and there are plenty of people moving here as the variety of things, including the traffic, attest to.
Fewer people are moving to Colorado from California than from Texas.
Yeah, this, we've always beat up on the Californians for making our population boom, but this past year, the number of Californians that turned in driver's licenses dropped about 41%, down from 33,000 to about 19,000 roughly. More in the second half of the year, more Texans moved here than Californians. And the California economy is starting to come back. There's less incentive for them to move here now.
Another aspect of this is what's happening with the state's economy.
Yeah, the state's economy is still healthy, but slowing down a tad. The job growth will probably decline to under 2% from close to 4% this year. Denver recently put out its 95 sales tax figures, which show they still made about another $10 million in taxes last year, which was what, a 3.5% increase. But they're looking at maybe 3% this year, which is just above inflation. One of the big things that caused that to slow down was all of the massive construction projects ended. DIA, Coors Field, the new library, and the city gets a cut of the materials that are used in those projects. And they went down about 6.8%. So, but a lot of other things are still booming. The retail business, restaurants are doing real good business. Cherry Creek is up a good 6% over the year before. They're kicking in almost 6% of the city's total sales tax just from that one shopping area.
And the economists looking beyond this year on to next feel that it's going to remain pretty stable.
Stable, yeah, and it'll be, the job growth will probably be close to 2%. So there'll still be a fairly healthy economy, and we're still growing about twice as fast as the national rate. But a little air is going out of the population balloon, and for some people are thrilled about that. And we still have to absorb about 450,000 people that moved here since 1990.
And all of those people are congregated on Colorado Boulevard, just north of I-25.
Yeah, whenever you want to turn left, they're all there, I think. Especially, there's about 70,000 people that are using Colorado Boulevard from I-25 up to about Colfax. And if you've ever gone shopping over at the complex there where Toys R Us, REI, Best Buy off of Mexico, that intersection is incredible. At peak hours, it does about 6,000 cars. And from the highway up to Florida, just north of Mexico there's up to 70,000 cars a day using that stretch of Colorado Boulevard. And not much can be done about it because it's hemmed in by development. They're going to add some turn lanes at Alameda and at Evans to make the traffic flow a little more efficiently, but not much can be done.
And Colorado Boulevard, in technical terms, is at what they call carrying capacity, and it's only going to get worse.
It's in some spots it's beyond its engineered carrying capacity, and like the engineer for the city of Denver said, it's going to carry what it's going to carry. That's all there is to it.
So plan not to go very fast.
Well, you will probably be in a bumper mess for a while on parts of Colorado Boulevard, definitely.
And finally, just a couple lines, Guy Kelly. The Regional Transportation District has been trying to posture itself to do something with light rail, to find some money. The State Department of Transportation said, maybe we can help a little bit.
Yeah, for the first time in its history, the Colorado Department of Transportation said it will take some federal money and what they call flex them over to projects other than roads and highways. The most likely beneficiary of that will be the southwest leg of the light rail system that RTD wants to build, but has had problems getting federal funding for. If CDOT, as it's called, will help out on that, they might be able to build a leg down to Cinderella City, down Santa Fe to Cinderella City, and then eventually perhaps to Mineral as they originally planned.
And you've been following this for quite a while. Do you think, something really happen?
They seem to be serious about flexing money, which is allowable under the new federal laws regarding this transportation money. So yeah, it's possible. I think there'll be something in the works soon to make that happen.
Guy Kelly of the Rocky Mountain News. Last September, the governor proudly announced statewide education standards for all the school districts in the state. Already, there are discussions about some limited results. We turn to Bill Scanlon.
Yes, Don. Jefferson County, the state's largest school district that educates 1 out of 7 of all public school children in Colorado, has a head start on academic standards. They came up with their own a couple of years ago. And I talked to some teachers who have been using them in their classroom this year. They're using words like amazing, phenomenal, best thing that's ever happened to education in 25 years to describe the difference having academic standards in their classroom has made.
And one of the aspects, these teachers say that if you tell the students what they must achieve, they'll come up to the task.
The students love it. Apparently for the last 100 or 200 years in this country, the students have been unaware of what's expected of them, and so a report card or a Friday test has been a surprise. Used to be, teacher would teach something and then the test became the surprise that proves that you learned it or proves that you didn't learn it. You get a C or you get a D on a test, they say, well, that was pretty mediocre, but we're going to move on to improper fractions next week. Now, the test is geared exactly to what's expected. The kids are told at the beginning of the unit, here's what you need to know. You need to know how to put across a character trait in a story. Let's say you're writing a fairy tale. You need to put down 5 character traits and enrich this character. The kids say, oh, I understand now what's expected of me. So they do some pre-writing assignments, and then when they write their fairy tale, it's a lot richer than you'd expect. Some of the kids aren't going to do well on the story. That doesn't mean they're done. They get their paper handed back, explained what has to be done to improve it, and they keep working on it until they meet that standard.
Something like a newspaper reporter doing multiple rewrites.
Hey, yeah, we try to meet the standard no matter how long it takes. Yeah.
Now, all 176 districts in the state are going to have the same standards with the intent that young people will be better prepared for college or for coming out in the real world and working.
Right. Now, the smaller school districts, as a practical matter, will probably just adopt the statewide standards. Some of the larger ones can develop their own if they're at least as strenuous as the statewide standards. And there is an advantage to tweaking some of those standards to the particular needs of your students.
Now, Jefferson County is a first step there. Are other schools going to be implementing the same standards in the next year?
Yes. Everyone has to have the standards in place by the 1st of January in 1997. And the assessment tools that prove that you've reached the standards come along a year or 2 later. That's the key piece. Some educators are saying this is great, but unless we have both the assessment tools to prove what we're doing and the time and the money to actually reach the students who are having a difficult time reaching the standards, whether it be after-school programs or summer school programs, the standards aren't going to mean too much.
We're talking about the growth in Colorado and its impact on all of our stories. 17,000 additional students this academic year, yet the schools are having budgets cut.
Yes, and some educators are saying, we haven't seen anything yet. If you think we're suffering with these 1%, 2% budget cuts the last 2 or 3 years, wait until growth stops, because the last few years we've been paying with growth money to keep the classroom budgets from sinking any lower. They are envisioning when growth stops, classrooms of 35 students per teacher, cuts of physical education, art, and music, much more drastic. That is all because of the way our tax structure is set up, the way we finance schools. There's a couple of peccadillos that most states don't have that we have. One is the Gallagher Amendment, which requires that 55% of the load of taxes, local taxes, be assumed by businesses, and only 45% by residential. If you've got districts, like a lot of those in Colorado, residential growth is much higher than business growth. Have to keep ratcheting down the assessed value of residences to make sure that residences together only pay 45% of the load. That puts a great burden on business, but perhaps more importantly, what you can raise with one mill gets less and less each year. And with Amendment 1 saying you cannot raise the value of what one mill can bring in revenue without a vote of the people, it's a real mess.
You're suggesting that the crisis is just beginning then?
Yes, and so as I was saying, so far, because we have growth and more students coming in, we're using that money to pay for the classroom. What we're neglecting is new construction and renovation. There's $1 billion in needed new buildings or renovations that's being unmet in Colorado schools.
Back to Jefferson County briefly, there is a program called the Edison Project, essentially outside educators who want to come in and do a better job of teaching.
Yes, the Edison Project is a private firm would use public money to run schools. It's the brainchild of an entrepreneur named Chris Whittle and a former Yale president, Benno Schmidt. They have spent $40 million nationwide so far building the perfect curriculum, culling all the best ideas from leading educators. And they have a good curriculum, and now they're trying to get into schools using, for example, in Jefferson County they want to come into 7 schools and use the same $4,300 per person that Jefferson County would pay via taxpayers, and use that money to have a different kind of school.
And in these schools in Edgewater and Wheat Ridge, their intention would be a longer school day, more school days, and use of computers at school and mandatory use at home.
Right. Every household would get a computer, and it would be networked to the school. The idea is that the parents would automatically get much more involved in the child's education. If there's a nice computer at home, you can see exactly what the homework is, and you can send the homework in via modem, complete network. What the Jefferson County teachers who've looked at it are saying, well, we could probably do all this on our own. Well, maybe they could, and maybe they couldn't. But the paradox is, as most educators agree, parent involvement is crucial to the success of the schools. What they have found, the very debate over Edison Project has brought out unprecedented parent involvement. Parents all of a sudden at these 7 schools are incredibly interested in their kids' education. Now the teachers are saying, we have the parent involvement. We don't need Edison because the parents now are involved.
Education reporter Bill Scanlon of the Rocky Mountain News. That's our broadcast for this week. I'm Don Kinney. Good night.
Funding for the state of Colorado is provided by the Adolph Coors Foundation, Colorado National Bank will help you get there, the Monfort Charitable Foundation, and the investment firm of Piper Jaffray and its employees, looking toward the future since 1895. The State of Colorado, now in its 18th year, is produced in cooperation with Rocky Mountain Reflections. The State of Colorado provides background on issues of this week, Friday at 7:30, Sunday at 2:30.